go. Okay, hit live. Welcome back to the Meaning of Money podcast here. I'm excited to have Danny Cohen with me today. Danny, welcome.
Great to be here. The meaning of money, the meaning of life. So, waiting to talk about all these things.
And people. Danny is the founder of a very, very interesting venture capital firm called Sticker Ventures, investing in what people love, exclusively in early stage, if I'm not mistaken, Israeli founded consumer companies. So looking forward to diving into that as well. Danny, you've been investing in people and businesses over many years, and you've seen, obviously there's some that don't work out, but you've no doubt worked with people that have made it big, who have ended up making a lot of money, and you've seen that transformation from their kind of pre-money lives to now they have a bunch. What have you seen that money in a positive way, how it most helps people in a real practical way? And what things, if any, have you seen that money doesn't solve for those people? So they finally get their dreams, they finally hit it big, they finally get that big exit, get all this money, and what's not solved by money? But let's start with the first. Where have you seen it work really well, and where it's made a big difference for people?
We live in a society where a lot of good things cost money, and people, it opens up for them certain dreams and certain opportunities, and should not be taken lightly, right? You can travel in a luxurious way. You can buy the house that you always dreamed about. You can unlock that, and I think kind of associated with that, it for some people unlocks freedom, right? The freedom to do things, right? To take maybe risk, or just spend time on the things you love versus kind of the force of not needing to care for money at this point, right? I think these are all positive things, right?
Yeah. By the way, of that list, the thing that really jumps out at me is time. The freedom to spend your time the way you want to do it, whether it's on the projects you want or just how you spend your time. Because you can't buy that, right? That's one thing you can't buy. And so that's a big luxury, I think, among all those.
I definitely agree with that, but look, money is complicated also, right? So and I think for when you're young, and for most people, they don't have money and they don't understand the risks of life. I'll call them they're stupid. They're not really stupid, right? But they just don't know what they don't know. That is, of course, could be a huge asset, right? One is you have a driver to give it all you've got because you have no other choice, and you're willing to face things that are really tough, but you face them, one, because you don't know otherwise, and two, because you're willing to give it all you've got. And when you make a lot of money, you lose part of that. And I've seen people that started a company, did really well, start another company, and the only thing that's guaranteed when you start another company or start any company is that you're going to face hard times. That's given.
Guaranteed.
100%, not 99%, 100%.
100%.
And when that happens, there's some people that go like, what the hell? Why am I doing this? Like, why am I And you and the reason initially made a lot of sense. You want to make it in life, but now you made it, and what is that reason? You need to find that reason, and that reason doesn't have to be money at all, but you have to have that reason. And if that reason does not exist, that's a problem.
Is that answer ever money? I mean, if you were investing in somebody and they said the reason I'm going to keep working hard is just money, and they already had money, would you buy that?
Yeah, look, I think money is never a good reason. It never is, because I think I don't know, for me, and I think for some people, and still till today, I wait so much for some money that will arrive, and I say, oh, when that money arrives, and then always it arrives, and it's like, oh, whatever. And it's not because because how much I have, or I think the effect is not as strong. It's not as strong as things like, fulfill a dream or achieve something that is really meaningful for yourself, and things of that nature. There are people that all they care about is money all the way to the end. I think there's some famous people that are like that, but I think for most humanity, um, I think money is means to something. It's not the target itself.
Yeah, I would say even I have not yet actually met somebody for whom money truly was the end answer. I have met people like you're talking about, Danny, that on the surface of it seem like that because that's how they measure their success. But I would argue that what's really driving them is a hole somewhere inside that they're trying to fill because they can just get that extra amount, that extra deal, that extra status, that extra amount of money whatever that they're denominating in money, that they'll somehow feel complete. They never do though, because that doesn't solve that hole. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. And and that's a really funny balance, right? Because there is absolute truth that money is fabulously helpful for the things that money can buy. And when you don't have a lot of it, man, getting some is just a blessing. But at a certain point, you realize that, to your point, it doesn't have the same drive. And if you don't redefine that, your life can be a void, because when you're in that hunt, that chase, like I have to make this company work, I have to find a way to grow. You're on a mission, and you benefit, like you said, from that singular focus, that passion, that drive of I have to. And one of the beautiful things that money does is it gives you options. So now you no longer have to, and that raises for many people a new challenge. And I would even go so far as to say an existential challenge sometimes, because people don't often have immediate, good, tangible answers to why am I doing this? Like you said, why am I doing this? Or what do I want to do and why? And why don't I feel passionate?
And what's next? Also, I want to see something that in my life, it's confusing a little bit, because in the world of investing, the money is also the way you keep score. Mm-hmm. So the interesting thing about it is that invest to make money. So you're definitely in the business of making money, and you want that money. But that money, beyond the fact that it's money, it's also like it's really the score of the game, right? You made 10 times your money. You basically made 10 times points in this game, right? And that's a little bit confusing, because I'm really hungry to win in this game right now. But I really sometimes think about it more as points, and not just like the dream will come true and I'll finally have that whatever thing that I want.
Yeah, it's an interesting paradox, and I would say on the not so much in the venture capital side, but in the wealth management side, it is essential to find a secondary true north, other than just more is better. And the reason I say that is that if your true north is more is better, because that's how we measure it, you're apt to take more and more risk. And that can often have unintended negative consequences, and not bring the fulfillment. Like, so for example, at a certain age, even if people have millions and millions and millions of dollars, at a certain age, sometimes people wake up one day and they're like, you know what? I loved the thrill of the hunt and the roller coaster when I was 30. But at 65, I'm not looking for that as much. Now I want to just enjoy the luxury of total security and knowing I don't have to worry. I don't have to do anything. I'm going to be okay. And if that's your goal, then more is not always better, right? Sometimes sometimes the satisfaction comes from saying, hey, my goal is to have freedom in my life to be free from stress so I can enjoy my grandkids, or I can enjoy my wife, I can travel, I can read books and without the stress of worrying what the heck the market's doing. And so if I achieve that goal, and that was my goal, then I can be happy with what I have and not have to keep making more, right? And if people don't do that, they can really get into trouble. They can have a lot and never feel satisfied because they don't have a secondary true north. And like you said too, like when you are in the hunt to win, I mean, if you're professionally investing, of course you want to win. And often it's interesting, as a professional investor, where I find the biggest challenge that a lot of us face is in time. Like if you think about one of the most successful investors of all time, Warren Buffett, he's a master of patience. And the market could be down 50, 60, 70%. And if he has invested in companies he believes in, he's fine. His psyche, his energy, he's not panicking in the way that the retail investor is. If in fact he's thinking about it the opposite. Oh, there's probably some great opportunities here. Where are they?
Patience is
yeah, and then what you're doing, relevant. Right? You in venture capital, you're not instantly, 99.9% of the time, you're not instantly successful. It takes a
very, very long. It takes a very long time, and sometimes it takes years, right? But look, I think the great thing about being a VC is that you enjoy not only the end result, but also the process on the way, because you work with the companies.
Tell me about that. Tell me about the process along the way, because that's something where I have met a lot of people who wake up and they're like, hey, I want to be in venture capital. I want to be in private equity, make a bunch of money. This is really cool. And they get it set up, but I don't always get the sense that they really love the journey. And, I'm not saying it's an easy journey, but what? Tell me more about that joy along the way. How do you find that joy along the way?
So I think I have the best job in the world. And look, I work with entrepreneurs, with young people that are very, very hungry, very capable. And we have, 10, 12 portfolio companies. They're all different. So your day is spent with different ideas, different topics. You don't work on the same thing every day, all day. And as long as you understand that they run the show, I'm a supporting actor. I'm not the main actor of their journey, but I'm an actor. I'm part of it, and I've been part of different companies that got to substantial results, and there were hardships along the way and failures, but there were just it was great journeys. And when I left my first fund, Gemini, to join a different fund, I joked that I didn't leave one job. I left 11 jobs because I had 10 boards and one fund I was part of. But I was in at the same time in 11 companies. So it's the people, the topics, and again, every little thing that you do, or sometimes that you do, and you make a difference, you add those up. And I made a lot of impact to a lot of people in the world.
How is venture capital changing? How is it different in 2026 versus 19? Let's just call it 2000.
Yeah. I mean, I think the world is changing substantially, and AI is driving so many things. But I think when I look what AI does to there are two kind of very different point of views that I'll mention. One, we're in the world where very few companies take all the money they can, and people want to put all their money. So there are a lot of companies that want money, but everybody wants to invest in Anthropic, right? So it's kind of the very, very few 1-2%. They suck up all the money, which is a challenge for some companies. On the other hand, we're seeing more and more companies that do so much with very little money and very little people. We have one company in our portfolio, and talk about money. They're just two people, really just two, not two and a contractor, just two people. And
like really just two, yeah.
Really just two, yeah, one and two, and that's it, the two of us. and they are already selling in tens of millions of dollars, and they're doing a phenomenal job. And they're not going to plan to hire anybody else, and that is crazy. And that's something that was not possible at all 25 years ago, or not even 5 years ago.
No, I would have been beyond people's imagination 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Are they using agentic process to help?
Everything.
Yeah.
It's one of them jokes that one of the fans jokes that his partner even does not respond to him anymore. Put a bot that responds to his partner's emails. Right? So, I don't know if that's true or not, but I think it reflects a little bit of its agentic everything. Look, I don't think that's the majority of companies, and I don't think but it really reflects on we're in a world where so much can be achieved with very little, and that I think for a small fund like ours, that has a huge impact.
Yeah. So what are the new skills that people need to be developing in a world where there's so much more that can be done without money? What does that unlock? What types of mindset or values or personal characteristics do you find are more important today as a result of that weren't as much 15 years ago?
Yeah. I think to build has become a commodity. So building is easy. That means that it moved the bottleneck into two different areas: is what to build. What to build is still is not an easy answer, and you can let the machine build whatever you tell it. You can even ask the machine what to build, but there are very few products in the world that have magic in them, and that magic is still created by humans. So what to build, I think, is a huge challenge, and there are very few people that kind of have that amazing capability in them. And the second thing is distribution, right? Distribution is becoming also a bottleneck. So it's if I know what to build and if I have an edge in how to sell it, I'll make a lot of money. It's not anymore about how smart my engineer is.
So tell me about the magic part. I think that's an interesting question. What are some of given that agents or agentic capability today is off the charts and can do more than it's just mind blowing what it can do. You might agree with me that there's still some things, like, as you said right now, figuring out the right what to build. What are the 2 or 3 or 4 other things that you feel people still have an edge over AI on, or that will still play an essential role by virtue of us being humans and computers not being able to do that where we can?
Yeah. I wish I knew I wish I had a great answer for it, because we don't know, and this is changing so fast. The one thing I will say is that as long as we're still humans, and as long as the humans run the show, I think humans by majority still want to interact with other humans. I think we still live in a 3D world where we want physical experience and physical, and it's great we're having now this conversation recorded, and it's amazing. And again, 20 years ago, this idea that we'll do something like this was unthinkable. We'll never replace the fact that we'll have a beer together in a bar in Austin, Texas, right? So I think something about emotional 3D stuff is still where there's a lot of place for humanity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of humanity, I know that it's been a really tough couple of years in Israel with everything going on in that part of the world. How has that affected, for better or for worse or both, the venture community in Israel and in Tel Aviv specifically?
Yeah. So, look, I think since October 7th, these have been very tough years. War has been coming and going, and as we speak, even today, we don't know what's going to happen next week. So that sucks. Really does. And I really hope that in 1-2 years we'll see changes here and changes on the other side, and that we'll start to see a brighter future. I will say that for a lot of people, and talk about kind of where we started this conversation about what drives them. A lot of people went to war and came back with a huge desire to build, and And I think the amount of startups, the amount of people that are like, I'm now going to build a company that is just, I'm going to show the world that we can do something. The amount of people that have that mission in them is at all-time high. And the crazy thing about it is that with all the criticism that Israel gets, and it gets a lot on the news, the appreciation for the Israeli tech economy and the VHC scene is at all-time high. So much money is being flown into here from investments. So many people want to touch on Israeli entrepreneurs. So there's kind of this, I don't know, weird balance between kind of political Israel and kind of tech startup scene Israel, right? And I hope they'll all come together to be all positive, but right now there's some gap there.
Yeah. Well, certainly a story of human resilience. And like all entrepreneurs, as you said, are faced with all kinds of challenges. And therein, I think, is one of the, can be found one of the most beautiful parts of humanity, just that resilience to create positive and to create from nothing or amidst hardship. So really appreciate your perspective, both as a successful venture capitalist and from, sitting in Tel Aviv. And I do hope we grab that beer together, whether it's in Tel Aviv or here in Austin. Danny, it's been great to connect with you, and I look forward to staying in touch. Thank you for jumping on today.
Thanks a lot. That was great. Thank you.